What is up, guys? Today I'm going to be covering every single cheating boss in Wizard 101 Arcs 1 and 2, all the way from Wizard City up to Khrysalis. First off, I want to say that there actually are no cheating bosses at all in Arc 1. They only start cheating in Arc 2, so technically this video is just covering Arc 2 cheating bosses all the way from Celestia to Khrysalis. As you can probably imagine, this video took me literally hours to make. So if you found any of it useful at all, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And also, if you want to see me cover Arcs 3 and 4 and maybe side worlds, then please let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into all the cheating bosses in Arcs 1 and 2 of Wizard 101. So, as I said a moment ago, there are no cheating bosses at all in any worlds in Arc 1. So we're just going to go ahead and skip over all of Arc 1 bosses. There are some difficult ones, obviously, for the level, but none of them are actually cheating bosses. So we can just go ahead and skip all the way through Arc 1 and straight into Arc 2. Alright, y'all, so the first cheating boss that you will ever encounter in Wizard 101 is right here, located at the Trial of the Spheres in Celestia. This dungeon consists of 3 different chambers that at the end of each chamber, you have to fight a cheating boss. Astraeus is the first cheating boss that you'll ever encounter. He's located in the Sanctum of the Stars in Celestia. He has a couple of cheats. The first one is that at the end of the first round, he summons 3 minions to fight alongside him. These minions don't become active until 2 rounds later. His second cheat is that during the first round, he puts on a minus 90% tower shield on himself. This tower shield can be really annoying because he will actually interrupt cast the tower shield back on himself anytime he's damaged, as long as the minions are still alive. However, once all of the minions have been defeated, he will no longer cast the interrupt tower shield for the next 2 to 3 rounds until he resummons the minions. You can use the spell Melt to actually prevent him from putting on the tower shield and starting the cheat. So basically, the way that you want to defeat him is to take out all of the minions first, and then once you've gotten all of them killed, then you have about 2 to 3 rounds where he does not have his 90% immunity, so that's when you can strike. Or you can use Steel Wards or Dispels to get rid of the shield and the cheat entirely. Another thing to note is that sometimes damage over time spells won't trigger the cheat. Alright, so this is the second boss fight. It's against Ptolemos. He also casts a minus 90% tower shield on himself during the first round of the fight, and then after that, he casts it again every round that he gets hit. But it only triggers if it is a direct attack. So I'm pretty sure AoEs will not trigger that cheat. Once again, you can also use Melt to prevent the cheat altogether, or you can use Steel Wards to take the shields off of him safely. Alright, so the second thing to note is that if you cast charms on yourself, if you cast like a blade, he will remove all of the wards off of himself. So he will take off his own shield if you cast a charm. You'll know that he's doing that because he'll say, you've charmed your way into my heart. And then he'll remove all wards off of himself. The last thing to really note about his fight is that you cannot cast any traps on him or harmful wards. So you can't cast prisms on him, and you can't cast any traps because he will remove them. The only way that this can be circumvented is if you cast an AoE trap. So, for example, if you cast Mass Feint, he will not remove it from himself, but I mean most level 60s don't have that. So basically, don't cast any traps on him because they're useless. Charm yourself, so put charms on yourself, blade yourself a lot, and yeah, that should be enough to kill him. Mithraea is the final boss of this dungeon and also the last cheating boss of all of Celestia. Basically, during the first round, she will interrupt cast to put a minus 50% smoke screen on every wizard. And if a wizard in the battle successfully casts a spell, she will put a minus 50% smoke mantle on the wizard. However, the way to counter her is just to put a blade on yourself and then a trap on her. Once you do that, she will no longer cast the cheats, and you can basically have a free win. So just make sure you blade yourself and you trap her, and you're good to go. Next, we enter into Zafaria, which is the second world of the second arc. Zafaria has 5 cheating bosses total, and at the very end, it has Mirror Lake Dungeon, which has, I think, 4 cheating bosses in it. So we are going to cover all of it, starting from the first cheating boss all the way to Mirror Lake Dungeon, which is the final dungeon of the world. The first cheating boss fight of Zafaria starts us off with Nergal the Burned Lion. His cheats are pretty simple, so you shouldn't really struggle too much with him. To start things off, Nergal will attempt to cast a weakness on the last wizard to enter the battle. So if you're doing it solo, he'll cast it on you, and if you're doing it with a group of people, he'll cast it on whoever joins the battle last. Keep in mind that he can actually fizzle these weaknesses. So after he casts the weakness on the last wizard to join the battle on the first round, every 4 rounds after that, he will again attempt to cast the weakness on whatever wizard he's targeted on. Alright, so his second main cheat is that every other time he's attacked, he will retaliate by putting a dispel on you of the specific school that you attacked him with. Keep in mind that if you prism on him, he will put a dispel of the school that you prismed him. Another thing to note is that damage over time spells do not trigger this cheat. The next cheating boss that we have is Shaka Zebu. Shaka Zebu is a pretty easy boss. He doesn't really have many cheats. Basically, his first cheat is that if he is not at full health at the start of the round, he will interrupt cast a satyr to heal him. However, this cheat will stop once all of his minions have been defeated. You can also use Entangle on him to dispel the satyr. The second cheat occurs once all of his minions have been defeated. Every 2 to 3 rounds after his minions have been defeated, he will cast a 600 to 750 damage version of Meteor Strike. This cheat will also be triggered if all of his minions have been beguiled. Yep, so basically Blade and AoE, kill all the minions, and then kill him afterwards. The next boss on the list is the infamous Belloc. Belloc has only 1 cheat, but it can be a detrimental one. Basically, if Belloc doesn't take damage during a round, he will interrupt cast Raw at the beginning of the next round, which deals like about 1,500 balance damage. And he will spam that every single round that he doesn't get hit. So in order to avoid the cheat, you basically have to use DOTs. If you use a DOT to ensure that he's taking damage every round, he will not cast his cheat. So if you don't have any DOT spells, go to the bazaar and buy a couple poison TCs. Tim Snake Eye is another cheating boss that will interrupt cast a minus 90 tower shield. He casts it at the start of the match, and he'll continue to interrupt cast it every time he takes damage. The way this boss works is that you have to heal every time you want to hit him. After each heal, he will remove his tower shield, and then you'll have a window of 1 round to do damage to him before he recasts his shield. So, for example, if you cast Pixie on the first round, then on the second round you can hit him. But on the third round, he will recast his tower shield. So the optimal way to kill him is just to stack up buffs on yourself and traps on him, and then when you're ready to attack, make sure you heal and then attack him on the next round. This next boss honestly has such negligible cheats that I was considering not even adding him to the list. But this is supposed to be an all-encompassing list, so I guess we're just gonna add him. Kala's Silverback has 2 cheats. His first cheat is that if you cast a single target damage spell on him with no prism, then he will interrupt cast Minor Blessing, which is such a bad cheat that it just honestly doesn't matter. His second cheat is that if you did put a prism on him when attacking him with a single target spell, then he will literally hit himself with Ice Blast and do 500 damage to himself. So honestly, this This is just not worth adding. It's not. You know what? On to the next boss. Seisei's Snaketail has one very minor cheat, and it is that if he is defeated before his minion, he will revive himself at the end of the next round. So make sure to kill the minion first, or you can AoE and kill them both at the same time. The last cheating boss fight of Zafaria is actually pretty difficult. You have to fight 4 Spectral Guardians, all of which have cheats of their own. However, the Elephant Spectral Guardian is kind of like the main guardian. At the beginning of the fight, he will cast a minus 90% tower shield on himself, and he will replace it every single time he's attacked. This cheat ends once all of the other Spectral Guardians have been defeated. His second cheat is that he will mark a random wizard in the battle for 2 rounds. During that time, if you don't use a charm on yourself, the other Spectral Guardians will cheat cast the following spells. The Gorilla will cast a minus 50% smokescreen. The Lion will cast Orthoris, dealing 700 myth damage. And the Zebra will cast Blizzard, dealing about 750 ice damage. However, if you charm yourself, then the Elephant Spectral Guardian will remove the mark and all wards, including traps, off of you. Keep in mind that pet spells will not remove the mark. The last cheat to note is that once you defeat all of the Spectral Guardians except for the Elephant, he will remove all wards from himself, including his shield, and then every 3 rounds he will cast Scarecrow. For me, this fight was pretty hard, but the way that I beat it was by killing them one by one and then finishing off the Elephant at the very end. If you die, you can teleport back in, and as long as you've killed one of them, they'll stay dead. Alright, now we are in Avalon, which is my personal favorite world in this entire game. There are only a couple cheating bosses in this world, and it's not too hard. So let's get into the first cheating boss of Avalon. The first cheating boss that we have in Avalon is the Jabberwock. His cheat is that at the end of the 3rd round, and then every 3rd round afterwards, he will cheat cast Meteor Strike and deal about 1500 fire damage. After he casts his Meteor Strike, a plus 200% trap will be put on him. You can use that turn to deal the most amount of damage to him and honestly probably one-shot him. However, if you don't, then at the start of the 6th round and then every 3rd round after that, he'll cheat cast Cleanse Ward All to remove all traps and prisms off of him. So the way to deal with him is just wait for him to Meteor Strike and then use that 200% trap to your advantage. Build up a blade and then one-shot him. The next cheating boss in Avalon is Black Annie. In the first round, Annie will use her turn to cast a 0-pip Dark Wind, and you cannot replace the Dark Wind with a different global spell because she'll cheat cast another one. However, pet spells won't trigger the cheat. Her second notable cheat is that if you cast a 3-pip or less single target spell at her, such as traps or any negative charms or any attack spell that's less than 3 pips, she'll interrupt cast a 0-pip vampire and stun you for 1 round. So make sure you use spells that are more than 3 pips and blade yourself instead of trapping her. Now we're on to the young Morganth fight in Ghost Avalon. Her first cheat is that if a wizard casts a ward spell, so shields or traps, she'll randomly cheat cast a Power Nova and Earthquake, dealing 400 myth damage to all enemies and 100 fire damage to herself. The Earthquake will not remove any of her charms or protective wards, and pet casts don't activate this cheat. Mass Feint still does trigger the cheat. The second notable cheat that she has is if a wizard gets 8 or more pips, she will cheat cast Mana Burn on the wizard at the beginning of the round. Something to note is that if you already cast a spell before being hit by the Mana Burn, the spell will still finish no matter how many pips are available when you cast it. The way to win the fight is just to be consistently casting 6 or less pip spells on her. You should also avoid shields and traps and instead opt for spamming blades on yourself. Now we are in Azteca, which is the second to last world in Arc 2. This world has 5 cheating bosses in it, and one of them we've seen before already. So let's just get right into the cheating bosses of Azteca. Alright, so the first cheating boss that we have in Azteca is Please forgive me if I'm butchering his name, but here we have Ponce de Gibbon. Bro, I swear. Anyways, this guy is probably the most difficult cheating boss, at least he was for me in all of Azteca. His cheats revolve around an interrupt cycle, which spans the length of 5 rounds and repeats itself every 5 rounds. Alright, so during the second round of this cycle, he will place a mark on a random wizard. In order to get rid of the mark, you have to damage him. If you successfully attacked him, he will remove the mark off of you and any other wards. However, if you don't attack him, he will beguile you. And at the beginning of the 5th round in this cycle, he will interrupt cast a version of sacrifice that deals 650 damage to you and will heal him for 1800 health. The more universal and death blades that you have on, it will increase the amount of damage that he does with the sacrifice. However, universal and death shields decrease the amount of damage dealt. So in order to beat him solo, you have to be pretty much on top of every single round and making sure that you're not forgetting to do anything. Also, don't bother bringing any universal or death blades, but instead you should be bringing a lot of universal shields. So like a tower shield. But also one thing to note is that melt can be used to dispel the cheat. So if you're struggling too much, realistically you can just pack a couple melts, dispel his cheats, and then work around that to kill him. But I honestly don't recommend doing this fight solo. Sepactli is a pretty easy cheating boss once you understand how his interrupt cycles work. So his battle revolves around 2 alternating interrupt cycles, which are Ward Dance and Charm Dance. Each cycle lasts 3 rounds. The first cycle, which is Ward Dance, starts in round 3 and lasts until round 5. The second cycle, Charm Dance, starts in round 6 and then lasts until round 8. The entire interrupt cycle then repeats in round 9. So first, let's cover Ward Dance. At the beginning of the first round in this cycle, Sepactli will place a mark on each wizard. If the mark is not removed during the first or second round of each cycle, he will cheat cast Dr. Von's monster, dealing about 800 damage and putting a minus 25% healing charm on the wizard. The way to get rid of this mark is just by casting any ward. So you can shield yourself, you can prism him, or you can trap him, which will all get rid of the mark. The second cycle, which is Charm Dance, begins on round 6. At the beginning of this cycle, he'll place a balance blade on himself and a mark on all wizards in the battle. You can remove this mark by casting any charm, so blades, dispels, weaknesses, so on and so forth. So basically, on the 3rd or 4th round, cast a ward, and then on the 6th or the 7th round, cast a charm. And that cycle will continue to alternate until he is defeated. It can be noted that global spells will trigger him to remove the mark, aura spells will not make him remove the mark, and pet spells and item cards also will not make him remove the mark. Alright, there's not really much to say here since we already covered Belloc. He has all the same cheats, basically just hit him every single round, otherwise you're gonna die. He just came back to catch some smoke, I guess. For the final dungeon of Azteca, we have 2 cheating boss fights, which are Skirka's Screaming Moon and Malistaire the Undying, respectively. Skirka's Screaming Moon is really easy. Basically, she just summons minions to fight with her. The minions, however, will also heal her every 2 to 3 rounds. And if you try to kill one, she'll just resummon another one. And Malistaire the Undying's only cheat is that he will kill himself after you kill all his minions. So to deal with Skirkas, just kill her first and then kill her minions. And as for Malistaire, just kill his minions because he'll die after you kill them. Okay, so as we all know, Khrysalis is long as hell. Khrysalis has by far the most cheating bosses out of I think every other world in Arc 2 combined. And having said that, this video is already 20 minutes long, so I don't know if I'm trying to double it to make it 40 plus. But if you've made it to Khrysalis already, by this point I'm sure you're very familiar with cheating bosses that just pretty much summon minions. So I'm not going to be covering those cheating bosses in Khrysalis. Instead, we're just going to focus on the major cheating bosses. So I very much apologize for that, but this is just, bro, there is so many cheating bosses in Khrysalis, bro. Cravenly the Hunter is the first cheating boss in Khrysalis. His first cheat is that at the beginning of every round, he will cast a natural attack at a random wizard. This natural attack is a damage over time spell which deals 130 life damage for 1 pip, 140 life damage for 2 pips, or 340 life damage for 3 pips, and 630 life damage over the course of 3 rounds. His other cheats are health threshold cheats. So once his health reaches 75%, 50%, and 25%, he will interrupt cast Spirit Blast and Spectral Blast. Honestly, I personally could not solo this guy. He was way too difficult, so I don't recommend soloing him. Balasto Toebiter isn't really a hard boss, but I think it's one where it's actually kind of useful to know his cheats. So basically, if you cast any positive charm, global, or manipulation spells, he will cheat cast a 0 pip natural attack, which is a ice damage over time spell that will do 300 plus 600 damage over 3 rounds. And then his second cheat is that whenever someone is defeated, whether it is an enemy or an ally, he will interrupt cast an ice scarecrow that does 900 ice damage. Ghost Dog is another pretty difficult cheating boss. Technically, you fight him twice. The first time he has no cheats, but then the second time he respawns and you fight him with cheats. His first cheat is that at the end of the first round he will summon 3 minions. His second cheat is that at the end of the second round and then every 5 rounds after, he will interrupt cast a DOT spell. This cheat automatically targets the first wizard in the battle. Then, at the end of the 5th round, he will cast a detonate on whichever wizard has the damage over time effect. You also cannot dispel this cheat. The last cheat to note is that if you cast a helpful ward, then he will interrupt cast Shatter. So yeah, this is another fight that I don't even know if it's possible to solo it. Tree Roots just has one cheat. His cheat is that when one Tree Root is defeated, the remaining ones will spawn in an elite minion. This cheat is really annoying to deal with, so you could prevent it altogether by just stacking up a bunch of traps and blades and then one-shotting him. I recommend not soloing this. You could do it with like one other person, but it's kind of hard to do solo, so... The Galleries is a instance of cheating bosses at the end of Khrysalis. There are 3 battles total, and in the first battle you fight both Ghost Dog and Cravenly the Hunter. They have all the same cheats as the previous times that you fight them solo. I think the only difference is that Cravenly does his DOT spell every other round instead of every single round. For Fight 2 of the Galleries, you are fighting both Balor the Broken Fang and Santa Muerte. The cheats are that at the end of round 1, Balor summons 2 minions, and every other round, Balor casts a 70% tower shield on himself or someone else on the team. And Balor will cast a Storm DOT every 3 rounds to whoever is most threatening. The 2 minions also have cheats because they will both summon a Blade on Balor every round. Alright, the third and final fight of the Galleries will have you fighting Archmagus Lorcan and Lord Umbra. At the end of round 1, Lorcan will summon 2 minions, and every 4 rounds, Lord Umbra will steal pips. The last thing to note is that once Lorcan gains a Shadow pip, he will cast Shadow Sentinel every 3 rounds, and after the Sentinel is cast, he will use Sacrifice to heal Lorcan for 1500 health. Alright y'all, we have finally made it to the last fight of Khrysalis. In this battle, you will be fighting Morganth. She's got a couple of notable cheats, so let's go through them one by one. The first cheat is that if a prism is used on Death Morganth, including mass prisms, she will cast a DOT on herself that deals 350 damage over 1 round, and use Cleanse Ward to remove the prism. Storm Morganth will place a DOT on herself after a global is used, and Ice Morganth reacts to every enemy attack. The second cheat is that at the beginning of every 4th round, Ice Morganth will cast a Shadow spell that summons Shadow Morganth to hit all wizards for 600 shadow damage simultaneously. And if Ice Morganth is defeated, then Death Morganth will take over casting the Shadow cheat.
If Death is defeated, then Storm will cast it, and then if Storm is defeated, then Balance will cast it. Another thing to note is that each Morganth has their own special attack. The Death Morganth attack will deal 300 death damage and a minus 35% healing to the enemy. Balance Morganth will deal 300 balance damage and add a minus 45 accuracy to all enemies. Ice Morganth will deal 100 ice damage and absorb 200 damage to all allies. Storm Morganth will deal 500 storm damage and then will add a plus 25 trap to all enemies. So yeah, that's all of Morganth's cheats. To anyone who has made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much. This video literally took me days to make. From making the list of every cheating boss in every world, and then going and getting clips of all of them, and looking up all their cheats, and then editing the whole video together, it just took so long. So, if this helped you at all, or if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. I also apologize if I did happen to miss any bosses. I know in Khrysalis I started kind of like just focusing on the main ones because there was just so many bosses in Khrysalis and most of them didn't really do anything. But yeah, let me know if anyone wants to see me do this for Arcs 3 and 4 or side worlds or dungeons or whatever the hell, because I would be more than willing to do it again. Thank y'all so much for watching. Have a great day.